Well, it may not seem like the weather is warming outside, and yeah, the weather may not be warming, but the climate sure is. And the parts per million of carbon in the atmosphere are higher than I thought they were. I was corrected yesterday. We're up to 397 parts per million. That's a serious issue, a serious problem. And Channing Dutton, self-described climate patriot, is going to join me for that conversation later today. But first, we're going to talk with Rob Hawk about wind energy and with Mike Owen with the Iowa Policy Project about tax policy.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan-baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
This moment of silence brought to you by Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering, home of Des Moines' premier rooftop dining experience. Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant Bar and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
On March 28th, Equal Justice After Hours is Iowa Legal Aid's annual fundraiser that helps provide access to justice for low-income Iowans. The event includes a reception and program at the Temple for the Performing Arts in Des Moines. It also includes remarks by Georgetown University law professor Peter Edelman and the induction of Robert Oberbelly into the Iowa Legal Aid Hall of Fame. Tickets start at $50 and sponsorship opportunities are available. Contact Terry Bennett at tbennett@iowalaw.org. That's tbennett@iowalaw.org.
Ludwig van Beethoven here. I used to be so tired all the time, not from composing and playing, but from moving my piano. But now I feel so much better. I call S&P Piano and they will bring my piano anywhere. They also sell and rent pianos, used ones, new ones. You get the idea.
Call S&P Piano right away at 208-6453. That's 208-6453.
S&P Piano.
Times are tough, and most people are just trying to make their cars last a little bit longer. That's why you should know about Sargent's Garage in Des Moines. You can trust Sargent's to make the right diagnosis and give you a fair price. Whether it's a routine oil change or a major repair, Sargent's always does outstanding work. So don't give up on that old car just yet. Call Sargent's Garage at 246-8149. That's 246-8149 for Sargent's Garage.
Nestled in the heart of downtown, Ritual Cafe is one of Des Moines' most unique places, offering a wide variety of coffee and tea. Ritual Cafe also serves the only all-vegetarian menu in town. And Ritual Cafe is a cultural hub for artists and musicians, with a performance stage hosting local, national, and international talent. Make Ritual Cafe a part of your daily ritual. On 13th Street between Locust and Grand in downtown Des Moines. And check out ritualcafe.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
So many issues, so little time, so much paper, such a poor system of organizing it. Anyway, I got some other things to touch on at some point in this program today. I want to talk a little bit about the Republican awakening on immigration reform. Is it sincere or is it politically motivated? We'll talk a little bit about that. I want to talk about the another brilliant idea for inundating our food with poison and calling it healthy. We'll talk about that. Also, welcoming more latecomers to the same-sex marriage equality bandwagon, most recently Hillary Clinton. I want to talk about a little bit more about government secrecy and elected officials who don't respond well. I mean, these These are a bunch of topics you could spend an entire program on, but we're going to touch on a few things today because some of the stuff is just breaking in the news. Also, there's some good news on the death penalty from around the country, good news from my point of view as a strong opponent. And also, Mitt Romney has lost his way, and we're going to help him find it. But first, we're talking wind energy with Rob Hawk. Rob, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate being back on.
Yeah. So, and I've been juggling so many balls here today that I'm going to let you kick it off. I know there's a bunch of breaking things happening, and I've got some questions I want to ask. But just to start it off, what's the latest discussion in the wind energy industry? What are we hearing these days?
The wind industry did receive the production tax credit renewal at the end of, right at the end of the year, January 2nd. So we do have the production tax credit has been renewed. It's a 1-year tax renewal of the tax credit. And then we'll have some work in progress. They're waiting for the IRS. So we'll have a total of 30 months of tax credit available to us.
And just to put some historical perspective on that, that's the same tax credit that Mitt Romney came out against during the presidential campaign, correct?
Yeah, he definitely came out against it. He's non-supportive.
He definitely came out against it, and it definitely was a bad move politically, wouldn't you say?
It did not help him, not in Iowa.
Not in Iowa, not in other states as well, but certainly not in Iowa. I mean, we even had Branstad, Steve King, Charles Grassley all coming out on the other side. You know, Mitt Romney had to be pretty lonely on that issue. So, but it wasn't clear what was going to happen because there were plenty of folks in Congress who were against renewing the tax credit. So, what went our way? What finally got this issue to go the right direction and have the credit approved?
I'm going to have to confess that you're coming in a little bit hot in my earphone. Okay,
Maddie's going to adjust that.
And so could you ask the question?
Yeah, sure. Just trying to get a sense of, and again, there was a point not too long ago, last year, where we thought the wind energy tax credit renewal was significantly in jeopardy. It passed. It's good. It's helping you out. It's helping some of the other entrepreneurs trying to move us forward with renewable fuels. What changed? What went the right way in terms of making that happen?
We had about 4 years of good consecutive policy. We had a renewal of the production tax credit in 2009 under the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the production tax credit. So we've had almost 5 years of solid policy in place, and so we've really been able to get a lot of capital invested into the industry. The state of Iowa has seen about 7,000 jobs established in the state of Iowa because of the production tax credit.
Now, a lot of those jobs were in jeopardy if the tax credits were not renewed. Were they all pretty much preserved? Were we able to add new jobs as well?
There has been some job loss in the state of Iowa because of the production tax credit, and there's still... Because of
the delay. You mean the delay in renewing them?
Yeah, definitely a delay that really impacted. A lot of our clients have kind of backed up as far as on their strategy, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to be doing this year, next year, but they're still committed. We're still seeing them investing large amounts of dollars in their portfolios for the future.
Yeah. Well, I'm always fascinated how, maybe this is because I was in office for 14 years, but I'm always fascinated to learn how something moves from, life support to success or failure for that matter. It's always an interesting discussion to me to figure out what changed. Clearly Mitt Romney's argument didn't win the day, and clearly other forces were able to prevail, and that's despite a very harsh climate, no pun intended, when it comes to budget priorities in Washington. This is one that somehow was able to rise to the level of importance where it not only survived the budget acts, but was renewed. And I believe, if I understand correctly, it was renewed at the level that was requested.
We were hoping for a 4-year tax credit extension, and we were not able to get that. So we did get it at the level of tax credit, but it's a production tax credit. We actually have to make the investment.
That's right. First. That's an important distinction.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so it's one of those things you get after all the other stuff is done, and it's not all in one shot. You get it over the next 10 years.
Folks, if you're listening to this program live, you're welcome to call and join the conversation at 244-0077 or toll-free 855-244-0077. And you can always email me at fallonforum@gmail.com, either during the program or afterwards if you wanted to tell me how wonderful my guests were and how dashing my Irish cap looked today. But beyond that, if you're listening on KHOI, of course, you're listening to a pre-recorded show, and we appreciate you listening, but the call option obviously is not available. Let me ask you this, Rob. There has been in the past a wind energy tax credit at the state level here in Iowa. Is there any, we've got our budget's a lot better off than the federal budget. Is there any discussion of reestablishing that here in Iowa at the state level?
Yeah, it is. It has been extended last year. It's still in place. Our state level representation is doing a wonderful job. They see the economic benefit to supporting renewable energy, ethanol, biodiesel, wind, solar. I mean, it's all in the same lot. The farmer is able to take a considerable amount of renewable proceeds from the easements that they are paid. Ethanol is in the same group. Ethanol is doing great because of what it's received in the past. So our state representation is doing great, not only at the state capitol, but also in Washington, D.C. We have next week in Hy-Vee Hall, we have the Iowa Wind Energy Association annual conference, Tuesday and Wednesday, and we have, I think, every single one of our federal legislators are going to be in attendance as well with the governor.
Wait, all four Iowa congressmen will be there. That's impressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm assuming too, because it's during the Iowa State legislative session, perhaps you'll get some representation from the House and Senate at the Iowa State Capitol.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, this is all good news. One other question, and then I have one other a bit of a tangent to ask you about here. But I'm tempted to make a bad pun. Is the sky the limit when it comes to wind energy? I mean, what is the capacity of Iowa and even beyond Iowa, other states, other countries to capture the wind? I know that the Onion made a very maybe it was clever, maybe it was a little bit over the top, a little spoof on the oil lobbyists had put together a think tank that determined that too much wind energy would cause the Earth to tilt off its axis and create a global apocalypse of sorts. Obviously silly, but is there a capacity beyond which you cannot expect wind energy to grow? I mean, it looks to me like there's no limit to where we can go with this.
No. From the research that I've seen is that there isn't a limit to how much energy we can produce from wind. The negative impacts are sensationalized, if there is any, as far as the impact of wind. I'm working with several school districts, and I was talking to a superintendent last week. He said, I have 75 taxpayers in my school district that will be paying their taxes for the next 30 years minimum, and they're never going to complain. They're never going to complain about the conditions of the roads. All they're going to do is going to pay taxes. And those were 75 wind turbines that are in his school district. He said, where can I sign up for another 75? So,
Right. Good. Yeah. So it's again, it's very encouraging because, as you know, I'm a huge fan of weaning America, weaning our planet for that matter, of carbon-based fuels, of non-renewable energy. And we have a guest later in the program, Channing Dutton, who will be talking about some recent data that is greatly disturbing. So, the quicker we can move in the direction of renewables, the better. And I'm encouraged to know that the sky is the limit when it comes to wind energy production. Now, Rob, you may have heard I'm helping to organize an event, an epic march, shall we say, the Great March for Climate Action. This is a march taking place next year, leaving the West Coast on March 1st and walking across the country through Iowa to demand action on climate change, on the climate crisis. And I'm toying with ways in which the march can not just educate folks about the importance of doing something, but can actually showcase some of the alternatives to the stuff we've been doing that's been causing the problems. I mean, I'm just trying to think about creative ways to showcase wind energy along the route. Clearly, when the march comes through Iowa, there'll be a great opportunity for folks to see up close how wind energy works. But maybe there are ways of showcasing it along the route. Maybe, I mean, is it too much to imagine a private or a portable small scale wind generator traveling with you, producing energy along the way as you march? Is that a crazy idea?
No, that's actually a pretty awesome idea. There's a number of different little wind turbines that you can take along the way, as well as solar panels that you can have your power. You wouldn't have to stop and gas up. I think it'd be a fantastic idea.
So go ahead.
I wanted to be on your march for next year. I wanted you to count me in along with my kids too. We'll do part of that march.
Oh, really? Exciting. That's great news, Rob. Well, thank you so much. But so what you're saying is the technology is there to develop to transport a small portable wind turbine of some sort along with you when you travel.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
RVs will power their campers and charge their batteries with little wind turbines. You can buy them from camping stores all over the place.
Gosh.
So it's a generator you don't have to fill up.
Well, who knew? I was hoping you would give me that kind of answer. I wasn't optimistic, but gosh, you did not disappoint. That's exciting, Rob. Yeah. Well, thank you. Any further final comments for us before we move on? And anything you want to say about the upcoming the big event at Hy-Vee Hall next week?
It's going to be a great turnout. We have a whole bunch of vendors that are going to be there. Whenever we can get all of our federal legislators in one room in order to have a civil conversation. They're all been great supporters of the wind industry. The governor is going to be there talking about the support of the wind industry. I mean, we just have an unbelievable amount of support for wind and renewables in the state of Iowa, just because it creates so many taxes and jobs. So much so that they want to put a little wind turbine on my driver's license. I think that's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. Well, hopefully they'll put them on. If bicycles ever have to register, we'll have little bike license plates that have little wind turbines on them as well.
No. So it's next Tuesday, Wednesday, Hy-Vee Hall. Governor is opening session, and then I can't remember the legislators what time. But 2 days there at Hy-Vee Hall will be a great turnout. Good crowd, a bunch of exhibitors, lots of questions, lots of answers.
Well, Rob, thank you so much. It's great to see progress being made in a very broad bipartisan way on something that's so important, not just for Iowa, but for our environment, for our climate, for our planet. So thank you for your work, and we'll see you out on the highway next year.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, count me in. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, folks. Moving on here for a minute. Mike Owen is going to join us in a bit to talk about tax policy, but I got to tell you, I'm looking at the. I'm happy that the Republican Party is waking up to the fact that it can't simply be the party of angry white men. That's a shrinking demographic. And so I look with satisfaction on the fact that some Republicans are coming along when it comes to marriage equality, including most recently Ohio U.S. Senator Rob Portman. His endorsement of gay marriage, again, it is largely, I suspect, maybe partly because he's got a son who is gay, but it means we've got the first Republican U.S. Senator who has come out in support of gay marriage. It'll be interesting to see what happens in his next election. And again, maybe by the time that happens, this won't even be an issue anymore. That's my hope. But, again, great. I'm glad to see him coming out on that, coming out as a supporter of gay marriage. I'm glad to see Hillary Clinton coming out in support of gay marriage. Well, gosh, it sure took her long enough. She was preceded, of course, by her husband and by a Republican senator and certainly by the president. And I'm happy to have anybody come over to the side of justice and equality, no matter how long it might take them. But it is unfortunate that Hillary Clinton took this long to get there. And I guess, my overall comment is, and this isn't a comment specifically about Hillary Clinton, it's a comment about politicians in general. Leadership means standing up when it may not be popular to do so. It means taking a position that might put you at odds with some of your constituents. And if you're always holding back, always being cautious about what the political consequences might be, that's not leadership. That's followership, and we don't need any more of that in politics. So what is the Republican Party saying, to switch gears a little bit here, on the subject of immigration? Is this really leadership, or are they following? They are, the Republican Party is, according to this AP story, embracing a comprehensive overhaul of the nation's immigration laws. Now, why? Okay, well, they're shameless about saying why. They're doing it in an effort to attract more Hispanic voters. Well, that's just wonderful. And I'm really I'm glad that you're doing the right thing, even if you're doing it for the wrong reason. Politicians and political parties shouldn't embrace a position simply to win elections. Again, we know that happens all the time. It happens way too often, and it is not just unfortunate, it's wrong. So, again, glad you're doing that. I'm glad Republicans are coming out in support of marriage equality, of immigration reform, and I am hoping that they begin to come out in support of action on climate change, because this climate crisis is almost beyond imagination where it is going. And again, we're going to talk more about that later in the program. But right now, I want to switch gears again. You got to keep up with me, folks. I switch gears a lot. I've got a bike. It's got 18 gears on it, and I like to use every one of them. Let's go to our phone lines and welcome Mike Owen with the Iowa Policy Project to the conversation. Hello, Mike.
Ed, how you doing?
Good. I don't expect you to comment on anything I just said.
Well, I just hit the clutch, and so I'm shifting gears.
Okay, well, that part, yes. Let's shift gears and go to tax policy. Okay. You guys do some great work researching all sorts of aspects of tax policy, and certainly tax policy has been a hot topic at the State House. What's what angle you think we should be talking about and thinking about today?
Well, a couple of angles. Obviously, at the state level, we need to be looking at who's paying our taxes and how can we make that more fair, more at least more proportional to what it is now. And then at the federal level, we're having the same issue.
Are you having any pushback from folks who argue that, well, the rich already pay their fair share in taxes? They pay a bigger chunk than anyone else.
Well,
you hear people say that.
There was a story last week that it was an AP story that actually it was a very good story, but the headlines on it all talked about how the rich are paying a larger share now than they have maybe in 30 years, which is it was an interesting perspective. I think the story started out something like "the poor rich."
Great headline.
Yeah, I mean, but as the story went on to point out, one of the main reasons for that is that we have an increasing income gap in this country, and so people at the high ends are making a lot more money than they were a while back. So we would expect that they would be paying some more taxes.
It seems like
that's actually with lower rates that they've had, they're paying more taxes.
It seems like there's always ways of spinning the discussion so that you get the answer you want. And if you're David and Charles Koch and you fund a think tank that wants to come out with the contention that we don't need to increase taxes on the wealthy, you're going to get that result. You can somehow it's complicated enough where you can somehow spin it so that it comes out to say what you want. But you're saying look at the big picture, not just the
that's what we always talk about at the Iowa Policy Project and the Iowa Fiscal Partnership, is that you cannot look at taxes in a vacuum.
Right.
They're part of a two-sided ledger that makes up a budget, and the budget overall is a package of the choices we have that it reflects our principles and it reflects our values. And so where do taxes fit in that scheme of things? And I think in many cases, you do have people that really, whatever side they're on, they can at least agree that things should be relatively proportional, that lower income people shouldn't be paying more of their income than in taxes than rich people are. But in fact, that's the system that we have.
I'm really struggling hard to understand Governor Branstad, who back in the 1980s signed legislation passed by the Democratic House and Senate establishing the Earned Income Tax Credit. That was a tax credit that specifically benefited low-income Iowans, the working poor, and has been universally accepted and endorsed since then, pretty much.
Yes.
But now trying to find any empathy for those struggling to get by from Governor Branstad. I mean, I don't remember a Governor Branstad who was this intractable. Look at the Medicaid issue. He's not. This is Custer's last stand. Governor Branstad's Medicaid version of that failed effort.
Well, I you're going to think this is kind of an odd comparison, but on Medicaid expansion, it seems to me that this is really in many ways comparable to the state lottery, the creation of the state lottery back in the 1980s. When that was approved, it was very popular in the state, and he vetoed that twice. And then he wound up signing it with great fanfare on the steps of the Capitol.
Right, but that is interesting.
Yeah, and I'm not saying the state lottery was a great thing, but that's what that's the way he handled it then. With the case of the EITC, he's vetoed that twice, and now with Medicaid expansion, he seems to have dug his heels in. But it's very popular, and you do wonder if his sentiments will change.
Yeah.
He has been able to find a way in the past to sign something that he has been dead set against, and it seems that the proposal that went through the Senate at least addresses his principal concern that the feds won't necessarily fund their share of the Medicaid expansion. So the Senate's come through with a proposal to say, okay, if the money isn't there, then we can change our plan back.
And I have to say, I'm not always overflowing with praise for the Iowa Senate. That was a brilliant move. That's a brilliant move, I think. It just you answer Branstad's objection, which again most of us feel the objection is flawed, but nonetheless you take it at face value. Say, okay, this is your position. We're going to find a way to address that, and I think it's just a matter of
he may decide that is exactly what he needs. He may be reviewing that plan. We'll see how it all shakes out.
I can't imagine he has any option when you've got 88 lobbyists. Some representing industry, some representing citizens groups, some representing the poor. 88 lobbyists lined up in favor of expansion of Medicaid. Republican governors around the country supporting expansion of Medicaid, and you have zero lobbyists on your side. Hardly anyone else saying it's a good idea. He really has to take this option.
If we could see that on a lot of other issues, we get a lot of things done at the State House that would be good for.
Well, and one other tax-related question: do you think we might see any movement toward a more balanced position when it comes to his proposal on property tax reduction?
Well, we're hopeful, and we're thinking that it's just a lot that seems to have to be worked out yet. We're going to be coming out with a new report in the near future on commercial property taxes, and we are hopeful that if there is a bill that passes, that it will have a sense of balance to it,
right.
That it will address, problems with TIFs, and so,
that would be nice.
We've argued all along is that, it's one thing to want commercial property tax rates to go down, but if you're going to do that, you need to address some of the benefits some of those very same taxpayers have, not all of them.
Right.
But you do that by dealing with some of the abuses in TIF. They had a huge opportunity last year to deal with that, and they really arguably punted the ball. So
well, that's been a harder issue to get around. Here we just had a situation in Des Moines where the Des Moines City Council voted unanimously in support of $20+ million in TIF money for Principal Financial Group. Anyway, go figure. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Folks, Mike Owen with the Iowa Policy Project. Appreciate you taking the time to be with us. We're going to continue our conversation in a minute with Channing Dutton. We're going to talk about climate change and some new data that is very, very disturbing. I do want to take a second to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club and also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring this program. I also want to thank Gateway Market at 20th and Woodland in the Sherman Hill neighborhood. I have my gas is out at the house. So I had both lunch and supper at Gateway Market yesterday. And again, I was amazed not just how much variety there is. The supper options include sushi and fried stuff and fresh vegetables and salads and sandwiches, ramen noodles. It's really amazing. You can get a fantastic meal for supper for like $10. And that includes a nice glass of wine to go with it. So, again, great place for breakfast, lunch, and supper. I found out yesterday in a big way, again, because of circumstances, but also a fantastic grocery store. So, folks, check them out. Thank them for supporting the alternative to right-wing radio and make them your neighborhood grocery store. That's Gateway Market and Cafe at 20th and Woodland. I'll be back in just a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
The dawn of a new era begins.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day one of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
Community CPA is the 15th largest CPA firm in Iowa, providing audit, tax, and accounting services. Community CPA specializes in international tax treaty and double taxation avoidance among countries and states. 9 dedicated, experienced, hardworking staff are the company's foundation, and their compassion towards every client is the secret behind Community CPA's success. At Community CPA, you can expect quality service year-round. Call 288-3188. Community CPA, 3816 Ingersoll. Experience the difference.
This is Dr. Holding of the Story County Veterinary Clinic. For 15 years, we have been spaying and neutering feral cat groups at affordable prices. Wild cats destroy game birds and songbirds. A single female cat can produce over 4,000 kittens in 7 years. The shelters are full, so unwanted kittens will be put to sleep. Your cats will stay home and stay healthy. Call us for all your dog and cat needs at the Story County Veterinary Clinic between Ames and Nevada on Highway 30, 1 mile east of Interstate 35. 515-232-8766.
Since 1994, Sid's Catering has graced Des Moines area events with quality service and rave reviews. Owner Sid Cohn's culinary career began with a Northeast Iowa vacation home for international clientele. Sid earned a Bachelor of Science in Hotel Restaurant Management and was the assistant clubhouse manager at Des Moines Golf and Country Club. Sid has a passion for fresh, local products and offers a wide range of options, including vegan, gluten-free, and ethnic. Mention the Fallon Forum when you book your breakfast or lunch event and get 10% off. Contact Sid's Catering at 208-2091. That's Sid's Catering at 208-2091.
Local farms, global flavor. That's the secret to Hawk's growing popularity. The best meals begin with the best ingredients, and 90% of Hawk's ingredients come from local farms. In addition to seasonal fruits and vegetables, Hawk features grass-fed beef and lamb, and pasture-raised chicken and duck, all raised without hormones, steroids, or cages. The coffee is fair trade, locally roasted, and Hawk's House liquors come from right here in Iowa. Hawk's owners go the extra mile, composting organic waste and recycling. For more information or to make reservations, visit hawktable.com. That's HOQ table.com.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the races.
Me too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back, folks. That's Max Wellman. Got another concert coming up on March 23rd. Max Wellman's been one of the many reasons why Des Moines has become the cultural and culinary crossroads of the continent. Anyway, folks, a couple pieces of interest here. This is from New Jersey. Apparently, the New Jersey legislature. Sorry, New Jersey. My bad. Maryland. I get them mixed up. They're both small and eastern. Okay, Maryland lawmakers approved a measure last week to ban capital punishment. Interesting. That's an issue that seems to be moving gradually in the other direction. Iowa, again, on the leading edge, the right edge of that one. We've been a no death penalty state for decades. Interesting to see that happening. This troubles me. Another piece of news here. The USDA has approved an antimicrobial preservative for lunch meats, which is, according to Keeman Industries, a potential boon for them. This is something called liquid sodium propionate. I think I'm saying it right. And you'd use it to kill listeria, but I'm not sure this is a good idea. I want to get somebody on the show, Maddie. We got to find somebody to come on and talk more about this because I don't think something in me says that's not a good idea. Anyway, we need to learn more about this. Okay, the elected official of the week, and I'm being sarcastic again, Terry Caldwell Johnson, Des Moines school board member, who basically refused to talk to the press after her controversial vote against Tom Ahart as the new superintendent. She said she was not at liberty to talk with the press, which, again, just incredible to me that a public official would think they were not at liberty. In fact, you're not at liberty not to talk. You're elected by us. You're accountable to us. You're spending our money. You need to tell us, and in terms of reaching us, the press, why you voted a certain way. We have a right to know. So I hope people. She's on the ballot this fall. I don't know whether that'll come up or not. It'll be an interesting conversation to see where that goes. But again, a lot of people are troubled by that kind of response. Anyway, we're going to switch gears to something of critical importance. Climate change. We'll be talking about this a lot, especially as we move forth on the Great March for Climate Action. I have a gentleman in the studio, Channing Dutton. He's a local attorney and a self-described climate patriot. And I think it's a great description, generally speaking. But in his case, I don't know of too many people who are more passionate about this issue than you, Channing. And I really thank you for taking the time to come into our program today. The new data, the data just keeps getting more and more troubling.
You know, that data does get troubling, Ed, but just like one of your callers, let me respond just real quickly to this idea about capital punishment that you were alluding to momentarily or a few moments ago. And that is one of the things in my background was I used to be a prosecutor for the Polk County Attorney's Office.
Okay.
And as this death penalty issue kind of rears its ugly head again, and there's a movement towards, this would be a good idea. One of the things that people failed to consider is the real cost of the death penalty, just in terms of the assets necessary to faithfully administer it, to carry it out in I hate to say humane, but at least in a fair way. Expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It never goes away.
More expensive than life in prison without parole.
So the people who want to have small government, the people who want to have a smaller economy and have the court system smaller and not as intrusive in their life, one of the things they fail to understand is what they're doing is inviting more money and bigger government right into this issue. So with that said, let's talk about climate. And I have
nice, not exactly a graceful segue, but we'll make it work.
I have some breaking news for you, Ed. It happened just while we were off the air and the break came up.
Good or bad?
Well, from 350.org, they're sending out a call, and 350.org for your listeners is a very dedicated group of climate advocates who are watching what's going on.
I believe Bill McKibben, a writer and activist, founded that group a few years back.
And Bill McKibben is a central player in all things good that are happening in terms of climate awareness and action. Well, McKibben's group has just sent out an email, and I just got it literally as we faded back in.
Really?
And that is asking people to call Senator Harkin because there is going to be a vote in the Senate apparently this week, before the week is out, to allow enough cover for the president to approve, let me underline approve, the Keystone Pipeline.
But what specifically would the U.S. Senate be voting on? I thought it was a Secretary of State decision working with the president on whether to approve the pipeline.
You're exactly right, and that's how it's always described. But what McKibben's group is saying is there is going to be a vote. Now, I think this vote is a creation of an atmosphere or creation of a climate from which the president can go ahead and approve the pipeline.
Much as the State Department report on the alleged environmental impact being negligible.
Right. I think in the military, they call this preparing the battleground. And so what 350.org is saying is if the battleground's being prepared, then those who are right thinking, those who understand where we are headed on this climate issue, and that this pipeline is a time bomb that is going to be a slow motion catastrophe for the future, all of us need to heed this call to contact Senator Harkin. And frankly, Senator Grassley has a huge stake in this as well.
Of course.
Because he has people who he loves who are going to follow him in this life and demand that they not create the cover from which the president can say, I'm going to allow this to happen.
Well, I'd like to learn more about the content of that vote. That's an interesting development. And
if I get a second,
kind of disturbing.
Yeah, if I get a second, I'll take a look at it. But Senator Harkin's number is 202-224-3254.
224-3254. 224-3254. That's Senator Harkin. And again, while you're at it, call Senator Grassley. It's always a great idea to talk with lawmakers on any issue, and certainly on something this important. Absolutely.
Now, what I'm here about today is the numbers continue to be stark in terms of what is happening to our atmosphere. And these numbers, the real perplexing or troublesome part of the data now is what's called the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and this is always expressed as a number with the letters ppm, parts per million, after it. What's been happening is historically during the era of man, let's say the last 10,000 years, we've been operating in ranges of approximately 320 or lower parts per million. As the Industrial Revolution has begun, we have moved higher and higher in these ppm values, and now the graph continues to jump at even greater levels.
You sent me a short video on this, and again, it's not there's no audio that goes with this video. It's mostly just a presentation over time as to how the change is affecting. And let's run that, and let's talk our audience through what it means and why it's important.
All right. And the way, as this comes up, the way the parts per million are calculated, or the place where it's calculated, is in Hawaii, distant mountaintop in Hawaii.
To be as far away from industrialization as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a graph on the left that I don't understand, but the important one, I think, is on the right.
Let me just stop you for a second for those who can see it. The graph on the left is very interesting because there's a baseline established at the bottom at about 330 parts per million.
Okay, right.
What's going on is there's a clock that is showing how the CO2 moves month by month each year. And you'll see that this bouncing graph.
Yeah, I didn't realize it moves so much from month to month.
Correct.
I guess that makes sense.
Right. Depending on the season, the readings will fluctuate. But right now, as we're looking at it, we're looking at 1990. Well, 1990 is now showing average parts per million in the 355 to 360 ppm per million levels. When you take the time to go to the Mauna Lea website and look at this, it's shocking as you watch this left-hand side of the graph because it starts in 1982 and it comes to the current time. And what it does is it demonstrates that we are soon going to bust 400 parts per million.
So the Industrial Revolution, of course, starts back in 1990 or so.
1890.
1890, okay.
1890, right. Maybe 1850.
No, sorry, I meant 1900, not
Right.
1890, okay. Right. And you didn't see any immediate increase in carbon levels in the atmosphere.
That's correct.
And you're saying it really became noticeable and started moving beyond anything we'd ever seen in 1982.
Well, in 82, right. The early 80s is a good time to start looking at the data. It's been moving up since the start of the Industrial Revolution, but it's been jumping lately. Now, again, for the viewers who can't see it, we're now up to 2011, and this graph is shocking in terms of how it is demonstrating.
Well, and again, there's a spike. So there's a spike in 1998, I believe, and a spike in 2012. But the increase in carbon parts per million is pretty consistent. It's pretty steady, and thus it should be pretty predictable. I mean, we should know where this is going.
We know where.
And that should be, if that doesn't sound in the alarm to folks, I don't know what is. I mean, again, I like how this graph, after it shows you the most recent decades, starts flipping back in time, 1200, 1500, we're back to like 500 AD, 0, back into the BC period. And then continuing way, way back beyond that, it just, I mean, yeah, there's natural cycles, but it just keeps, it's pretty much flat compared to where it's at now.
And what this does is it takes us back 800,000 years.
And they can measure that far back.
They can, and they can do it through ice core samples, through tree ring studies. They can also do it through sediment studies, kind of sediment core or mud core samples. And they can even do it through rock. They can do it through geology. And this is a very precise testing mechanism that they use that is repetitive. You can repeat it. Anybody, whether they do it in Russia or whether they do it in Lithuania or whether they do it in San Diego, you get the same numbers when you look at the same sources of information. And what this shows is that we have created a tremendous spike that hasn't existed during the era of man.
And to the folks who say that, well, climate change is a natural phenomenon, you get warm periods, you get cold periods, true. But if you look at the discrepancy between the cold and warm periods of the past, two things, I noticed two things. There's nothing anywhere near as extreme as what we're currently experiencing, and also the intervals in between cool and warm are much, much, much longer. Nothing like we see today. I mean, this is a huge, dramatic increase beyond anything we've ever seen.
For the person who will look at the data, and for example, if you go to the Mauna Lea website and take a look at this graph, and my friends who aren't real interested in the climate issue itself, when they've looked at this, their attitude is this: holy smokes, this explains it to me better than anything you can tell me, Channing, because if the underlying science and data points are correct, then this is an overwhelming confirmation of just what you said, Ed, and that is, first off, in the last 30 to 40 years, we have jumped. We are significantly higher, and that's the cumulative effect of burning the fossil fuels and putting that CO2 into the atmosphere. But second, it has happened so fast. Wow. And that's what has not happened in the historical record. Not that we haven't been at close to 400 parts per million, but this is the first time during the age of man that we've been at 400 parts per million. And what happens is at about 450 parts per million, all of the ice caps melt. And so we are going to
And
see.
has that ever happened in our nation,
Sure.
in our planet's history?
Absolutely.
How long ago?
The planet itself is 4.5 billion years
sure.
old.
Well,
and
so
so
4,000
but not in
years old if you're Bob Vanderplatz.
Well, yes, but if you're studying the scientific record that's been left for us to study, you'll see that there have been periods where the seas have been substantially higher. Now, Ed, last night in Des Moines, Dr. Nathan Kurtz spoke, who is a native of Fort Madison, young man, got his PhD, working for NASA, and he's talking about just what would happen if we melt the ice in Greenland. And here's the answer.
And it's already melting.
And what was shocking was his graph that showed last summer, all of the surface area of the ice in Greenland was melting. In the past, maybe the edges melt, but not the entire pie.
So
to speak.
how come we haven't seen immediate and dramatic sea level increases because of that?
Well, what the scientists would tell you is we have seen sea level rise. Now, it's been very gradual, but what's going to happen in the next, I would predict we'll see this in the next 15 years, is we're going to see significant sea level rise that we now start to recognize. It's not this gradual, inch a decade that maybe we've seen previously. But what Dr. Kurtz was saying last night was this, and that is if you melt the ice that's in Greenland alone, and keep in mind that last summer, for the first time, all of the surface was under melt conditions. Now maybe the center top portion of Greenland was melting only slightly, but the radar data from the satellite showed it was all melting. If you melt that ice, you raise sea level approximately 6 meters. That 6 meters is going to be
18 feet.
Is going to be almost 18 feet. You start adding the west bank of Antarctica to it, and you're going to be adding several meters of water to the ocean. And as our planet warms, there's a condition called thermal expansion, where just the warming of the water in the ocean causes it to also expand.
So the lesson here, folks, is if you're planning a vacation to Florida, get it in now. Or better yet, wake up. I mean, skip the vacation to Florida and get involved. I mean, this is a critical issue. We had a gentleman on the show earlier, Channing, Rob Hawk, who's doing great work on wind energy. And, the sky's the limit, he's saying, in terms of how much wind energy we can produce. We have shifting from a fossil fuel economy to a renewable fuel economy is not a technical problem. We have the capacity to make this shift. It's a political problem. Again, we shifted from a civilian economy to a military economy in order to respond to Hitler and the attack on Pearl Harbor. We did that in 6 months. We totally retrofitted our economy in 6 months because there was a crisis. We could do that for this crisis, but it's going to take. I like the graph that you showed a lot. That's a very powerful video, and some of the testimony you've had from other people, very powerful. And I'm going to put it on my website so folks who might not have been able to experience it visually can go there and see what it says and see how it makes you feel. And I'd love to hear back from you too. You can always email me at fallonforum@gmail.com. But we've got to be doing everything possible. And you just came from Washington, D.C., where 40,000 people who are empowered to do something about this assembled to call for action on the Keystone Pipeline. That's encouraging. More of that hopefully will be happening. We've got the Great March for Climate Action coming up, and I think there's a lot of ways in which people can get involved and change their own lifestyle, but also put pressure on elected officials at all levels to take action, to do something significant, something important.
The time is coming where it's going to be easier for marches and for demonstrations to turn out huge numbers. The only disappointment about the Washington, D.C. event was that it was only 40,000 because it needs to be 400,000. And people like your listeners can start to march with their feet, vote with their feet. For example, on the phone call to Senator Harkin to say this is an important issue. Yeah. And Ed, this problem is only going to get easier for us to see because here's the other thing about the parts per million. Last year, in 2012, the ppm jumped 2.67 points from where it was previously. Right now, we're at about 397 parts per million. And the people in Hawaii say we are going to break 400 parts per million in May of 2013.
And again, that's 50 parts per million above what scientists consider the optimal, the highest level you would want to be above.
We have a tremendous task in front of us. Maybe the only place where I would disagree a little with the semantics is These changes are going to be difficult, but they're nowhere near as difficult as the changes that we're leaving for the future.
Right.
If we force them to have to deal with our mess, and I'm 58 years old. I've enjoyed the benefit of the fossil fuel society, the fossil fuel lifestyle, but now is the time for people like us to get off our fossil fuel love and rear end and to change attitudes and to start doing things like riding our bike, like you do such a great job with, Ed.
Well, thank you. And again, not everybody can do everything, but everybody should do as much as they can. And again, this is a critical issue. And again, folks, if you're interested in learning more about the Great Climate March, a great march for climate action, there is a Facebook page created to keep people updated on what's going on. That is available through Facebook. Simply type in Great March for Climate Action. There is a website also up. It's www.climatemarch.org. It's not got all the bells and whistles that people have come to expect and admire on websites, but that is coming. But as for now, there is a functional page that you can check out and learn a little bit more about the march. And again, if you'd like more information, have questions that you can't get answered elsewhere, simply write me at fallonforum@gmail.com. Channing, thank you so much for joining us. This is a very important issue, and I'd be delighted to have you back on again in the near future. We really appreciate the work you're doing on this.
Well, and you're pulling a big oar too yourself, Ed, and so we're in your debt as well. But the real key is we'd like to be in the debt of those people who will pick up the phone and call both Senator Harkin and Senator Grassley and say, make a vote for the future, not for the past, not for the protection of your money sources, but for the future.
Right. Thank you so much, Channing Dutton, folks, and appreciate everyone who took the time to join the conversation today. The Fallon Forum is available live every day, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1, on the Fallon Forum website. It's www.fallonforum.com. We keep it simple. Anyway, folks, thanks for joining us. I do want to thank CPA, Community CPA and Associates for sponsoring, helping to sponsor this segment of our show. It's tax time, and you should give them a shout at 288-3188. They're at 3816 Ingersoll Ave in Des Moines, and have done a bang-up job and have grown to be one of the largest tax and accounting firms in the state. That's Community CPA at 288-3188. I also want to thank Hawk Restaurant. Hawk is a brand new restaurant at East 5th and Walnut in the East Village of Des Moines. And it's a fantastic restaurant in many ways. The food is sensational, first of all, but also 90% of the food served by the owners comes from Iowa farms and businesses. It's talk about a way to reduce your carbon footprint. Buying your food that you serve in a restaurant from local sources is a great way to do it. Check them out, folks. That's Hawk, H-O-Q, Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut in the in the East Village neighborhood. I want to thank Maddie Arrington, my producer. I want to thank Webcast One Live for providing the studio for the show. I want to thank all of my audience participants, and we'll be back tomorrow.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershide.
I am administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening, They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Okay. Hi, folks. Ed Fallon here. You might remember me from my many years of service as a state lawmaker. Well, I suppose you thought that when politicians retire, they move on and on. Let me try that again. Hi, folks. Ed Fallon here. You might remember me from my many years of service as a state lawmaker. Well, I suppose you thought that when politicians retire, they move on and, become high-paid lobbyists. Well, actually, a lot of them do. Some of them are put out to pasture. The really lucky ones, though, they get to be talk show hosts. And that's what I do. I host the Fallon Forum. Been doing that for almost 4 years now. The Fallon Forum is available online Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. at the fallonforum. I'll start at the beginning. Hi, folks. Ed Fallon here. You might remember me from my many years of service as a state lawmaker. Well, I suppose you thought that when politicians retire, they move on and, become, maybe high-paid lobbyists or something. Well, actually, a lot of them do that. But some, some are put out to pasture. The really lucky ones get to be talk show hosts. And that's what I do. I host the Fallon Forum. The program's in its 4th year and is available online Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 at www.fallonforum.com. But here's what I'm really excited about. The Fallon Forum is now available once a week on KPVL 89.1 FM. That's right. Every Wednesday at 7 p.m., we talk about issues important to Iowans, issues that probably aren't being discussed on commercial radio. We keep an eye on the Iowa State House, and we keep both eyes on the U.S. Congress, which last I checked was polling less favorably than traffic jams, root canals, and colonoscopies. Hey, at least Congress is still more popular than Kardashians and blah, blah, blah. From where? The whole thing? The whole thing. Hi, folks. Ed Fallon here. Now, you might remember me from my many years of service as a state lawmaker.